A very good evening to you, our dear viewers. Thank you for staying tuned on Race TV. I'm Jackie Lingler, ready to dive you through the financial sector here on the Financial Eye every Monday at 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. And tonight, of course, we have seen Uganda's economy over the years. It has been growing steadily. But of course, challenges like inflation and debt sustainability have remained a concern. The government of Uganda has come up with various policies to make sure that they boost growth and also attract investors. However, questions arise. Are these measures really sustainable, and are they going to work? So tonight, with me on the show, we're going to explore about the economic outlook of Uganda and how it impacts the financial markets. And tonight I have a guest from Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development. That is Mr. Moses Bekaye, Technical Advisor for Economic Affairs. You're very welcome, sir.
Good evening, viewers. My name is Moses Bekaye, Technical Advisor for Economic Affairs, Ministry of Finance.
Okay, if you just give a brief introduction to the viewers who are watching us right now, what exactly you do at Ministry of Affairs in detail as we dive through our topic for tonight.
Yes, much of the work we do has to do with the economic policies that support economic growth, policies that support household growth, policies that support exports, policies that support foreign direct investment, and also domestic investment, and policies that actually support revenue mobilization, and also policies that ensure that the funds that are collected by government are utilized properly in order to support economic growth and also transformation. Yes.
Okay. For the layman who is watching us tonight, could you just give us an overview of the economic outlook of Uganda?
Yes. The economic outlook of Uganda is actually very positive. We've transitioned from where we were during COVID of about just over 3% to last year where economic growth was about 3.3%. And for this year, we are looking at something like 7% growth. But when we start implementing, or we've started implementing what we are calling the 10-fold growth strategy, and that growth strategy has 4 anchor sectors. One of them is agro-industrialization, tourism, mineral development, including oil and gas, and also the knowledge economy, the STI. STI is science, technology, and innovation. And when we start the oil production sometime next year in 2026.
If it really happens.
Oh yeah, it will happen.
Okay.
It will happen. We've had some slippery years, but you know that the investments are happening. The pipeline is about to be completed, and once that comes on board, in the first 3 years, we are looking at double-digit growth.
Okay.
But over the years after that comes on stream, and with the implementation of the 10-fold, the one I've told you about, then we are looking at least 8% growth for the next 15 years.
Okay.
And what that means is that the per capita income, the money that people on average get in a year, will increase. We are projecting that will increase from about 1,300 currently in terms of dollars to about 7,000 in the next 15 years.
Okay.
And that's a significant leap. But also it means that poverty will come down. Our government is implementing a program called PDM. You've heard about it, and I'm sure you've benefited from that.
Not yet.
Okay.
But soon benefit.
The parish development model. So far, government has injected about 3.26 trillion into that program, and it's actually transforming households in terms of agriculture, in terms of small businesses, enterprises, in terms of in the small industries, and so on and so on. But there are also other initiatives that we'll talk about later.
Okay. So what are some of the key challenges that we've had that are affecting the financial markets over the years? And how can they be mitigated?
I think in the financial markets, one of the key things is really the cost of capital, what we call interest rates. I think they have been high, persistently high.
Okay.
But the government is, to mitigate that, the government has been putting in place other initiatives to provide long-term capital and affordable capital. For instance, we have the Agricultural Credit Fund,
Okay.
which is at the Bank of Uganda.
Okay.
And it has competitive interest rates. I think the interest rate there is about 12% compared to about 20 plus in the commercial banks. We
Annually?
Have, yes. Okay. And we have the Small Business Recovery Fund, which was started after COVID, had devastated some businesses, and the government wanted these businesses to support them to recover. And the government has injected there about 100 billion, but it also, it's a partnership with the banks. And the banks put in 100 billion, the government puts in 100 billion, and also the interest rates are comparative. We have for women generating productivity and growth for women enterprises, something called GROW. I think you've heard about it.
Yes, I've heard about it.
It's about 800 billion. And then we have another one which is about to start to support investment in industry, industrial transformation and employment creation, called Invite. So we have so many of these initiatives. And there is a new one for farmers as well, which is to support large commercial farmers. And this one will be interest free, although the government will be paying.
So when you mention large,
large means farmers that have at least 50 acres. 50
not
acres.
2 acres.
No, not 2 acres. 2 acres, you can start maybe a poultry, and so on and so on, and then you can benefit from the other. So I'll have to pay
interest if I have my 2 acres?
No, you can benefit. You can actually access the other.
But I want to know the eligibility of someone who can take up such a facility where they don't incur interest. So it's only to people who have 50 acres and above.
Yes.
Then the rest of us can go for maybe PDM.
PDM, or you can go for PDM. You can go for the Small Business Recovery Fund, which is also, the interest is also very low.
So when you say recovery,
yes,
you mentioned that this initiative was put on board because they wanted to help the businesses that were hit by COVID-19. Now, if my business wasn't hit by COVID-19 and I need I need maybe to benefit from the facility?
No, a decision was made.
Am I eligible?
Yeah, yes, you are. A decision was made actually to make it permanent, to support small businesses. Of course, the name hasn't changed, but the name shows or indicates the original purpose, which was to support businesses.
So even if I have my small business, I can go to any, is it any financial bank? Or?
No, there are some participating banks which provide this. For instance, Post Bank, Pride Bank, I think it's called Pearl Bank now, and others which you can go to. But also you can go to, even if it's a small business, you also have money for small businesses under UDB, Uganda Development Bank. So it also supports small businesses. If you have a good business plan and it's credible, of course it's assessed by the bank, and it shows that it will be sustainable and it can grow. It can be also supported with these affordable funds.
Okay, we've heard of the plan, the initiatives and the objectives. How are they going to be measured? How are they going to measure the outcome? At the end of maybe 3 years, how are they going to assess that this initiative actually was intended for this outcome and we achieved that? Yeah,
actually most of these frameworks, they have monitoring and evaluation frameworks. And what the beauty of this is that these funds, they have electronic portals. They have portals, and electronic tracking systems, where they are tracked, how they are performing, and so on. But also, when they were being framed, they had some key performance indicators. So there are some monitoring indicators, which are monitored, on a quarterly, monthly, yearly, 6-yearly, to see if they are performing. And if they are not performing, for instance, there has been modifications on the Agricultural Credit Fund to increase the uptake. Okay. But also the Small Business Recovery Fund to make sure that people, first of all, get to know them, and then increase the uptake for those funds. So the initial conditions have been modified in order for the people, first of all, to know about these funds, but also to make sure that they benefit from these funds.
Okay, how is Uganda's economic outlook in terms of export?
Exports have been performing extremely well. Okay. We are looking at, for instance, moving from close to 7 billion about five years ago to about more than 13 billion currently in terms of exports of goods and services. Okay. And that's exponential growth. When you look at coffee itself, the growth is phenomenal. You look at mineral exports led by gold, for instance. And this is going to continue to grow because there is a framework that government is putting in place to establish gold purchase markets in order to formalize these businesses so that people can transparently trade in gold. And there are other businesses as well that are actually growing very well. So when you look at agriculture, is doing very well. The growth is almost 7%, about 6.9%. When you look at industry, it's almost also similar growth, but also services. So when you look at the growth is broad-based. You look at all these sectors are actually showing heavy, strong growth. And when you look at the impact of PDM on agriculture, that is transforming, it's very transformative, especially in terms of pulling up people and also integrating people, including people within the agro business so that they can grow fast.
So other than giving them funds to boost their productivity in agriculture, are they being given some form of knowledge on adding value in the activities they do in agriculture, such that they can actually protect themselves from uncertain weather forecasts?
Yes.
For example, we've had of course droughts, we've had the locusts sometime. So have they been given some form of trainings in order for them to protect themselves as farmers from such uncertainties?
Yes, actually one of the key challenges that we've had in agriculture before is a lack of effective extension services, and the government is addressing that in terms of increasing the number of extension workers, and also to make sure that these extension workers are embedded with the farmers. We also have a system where the large farmers, through outgrower system, help the small ones in terms of cross-fertilization of knowledge and also financing. But also the other issue, you mentioned some of these droughts and so on. The government has what we call agricultural guarantee scheme, which is funded by the government to take up insurance mechanisms for agriculture. Yes, so
that is also available.
Yes, it is available. It's been available, I think, for the last 5 years.
So who is eligible for that? Any farmer?
Any farmer is eligible.
If I have,
I
just have to provide my evidence.
You just have to have evidence. You just have to have land. You have to have a business that is formalized and is in your names, for instance. Okay. It's a formal business, even if it's not in your name, but it's a formal business and has books of accounts and those kind of things. And you can actually be able to demonstrate that you have you have this agriculture business. You're growing maize, you're growing whatever, and then it can be insured.
So they make an assessment of my loss and give me according to that,
Yes.
or there is a particular amount?
Yes, the government works with the insurance companies. We partnered with the insurance companies. I do assess the risk that you are likely to face. Of course, they look at the type of crop, the acreage, and those kind of things. And then they look at the investment that you have put in. And then they are able to actually insure that. And the government actually finances that.
Okay. Yes. For the agriculture sector, what opportunities are there for the exporters?
There is a lot of opportunities in the export sector. For instance, when you look at coffee, I mentioned the coffee. I mentioned the other non-traditional exports like fish.
We had a scenario where coffee had
like
an
beans,
inflation.
Beans, cocoa, and many other, even nuts. So there's so many products that
we're exporting nuts.
Yeah, we can actually export nuts, yes, but mostly maize, beans, cocoa, coffee, bananas. So our banana goes to Europe and even America, and many other crops that are actually exported. But you're asking something about...
Yeah, we had a scenario where, of course, everyone was venturing in coffee, and then the supply was way above the demand, and the prices fluctuated. So now people are losing out, especially the large-scale farmers in coffee. So how do you advise farmers who are dealing in that sector on making sure that if such a scenario happens, they don't lose a lot of money?
I think Uganda's coffee is high-quality coffee, so the demand is high for Uganda's coffee. Okay. And Uganda is now the #1 producer of coffee in Africa. I think we've overtaken Ethiopia. It used to be the #1 in Africa. But because of the high quality of Ugandan coffee, the demand is actually very high. But what the government is doing also is to process coffee so that we don't just export raw beans, the green beans. We also, there are a number of companies that are now here in Uganda which are processing coffee products and then exporting them to America, to Europe, and so on. Actually, the demand is actually very, very high. And we think that the production that will come out of PDM, the large farmers that we are talking about, those who are already in production, the demand is going to be unlimited for Uganda's coffee, because the quality is good.
Okay. In terms of performance, if we are to compare Uganda's economic outlook to the East African community, how does it look?
Uganda has been rated as one of the few fast-growing economies in the world, alongside Rwanda and a few other countries, European countries and Asian countries. Yeah. So we think that with the implementation of the 10-fold, the onboarding of the commercial production of oil, which is about that, as I mentioned, and the opportunities that we have in Uganda, especially the opportunities that are created by the East African community, the growing middle class, the connectivity. You know, we are beginning to invest in SGR. Okay. We have the airline, which was revived, and that is also supporting exports and tourism. So when you compare Uganda with other countries, and we are now focusing also on productivity and competitiveness of the Ugandan products. So once we achieve those objectives, especially increasing productivity and competitiveness of our exports, you know, the growth is going to be extremely high, and we are going to be competitive within the East African community, within Africa, and globally.
That is well said by Mr. Moses Bekavie, the Technical Advisor for Economic Affairs, Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development here in Uganda, as we continue to explore the economic outlook of Uganda and the financial markets and what the future holds. Stay tuned on REST TV. Do not touch that dial. We're going for commercial break and we'll be right back.
Thank you.
The Financial Eye. Making finance clear, no complicated.
But don't talk about it.
I can't. Welcome back from the commercial break. It's your host, Jackie Lingla, here on the Financial Eye every Monday at 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. And of course, those of you who are just joining us tonight, we are dissecting Uganda's current state in the economy, of course also in the financial markets. And what does the future hold for Uganda? Now, previously we have a guest here, and we've been discussing some key issues. That is Mr. Moses Javier from Ministry of Finance, and he's been expounding on the opportunities that we have as the East African bloc. And sir, now right at that very opportunity, what are some of these opportunities that Uganda has from being a member of the East African bloc?
First of all, being a member of the East African bloc means that you have access to a bigger market. A bigger market of about probably close to 350 million people. And it's a market where also the middle class is growing.
Okay.
I think the middle class is currently about probably 35% or something like that. And that means that the demand is actually high. So when you produce a good, you have a good quality product, which has a good standard.
Okay.
And the price is also competitive, then you have a very good chance of penetrating this bigger market, the East African community.
Okay.
And what we are trying to do also to enhance that is to improve connectivity. Connectivity in terms of online businesses through internet and also other modern IT tools. We are now investing in the SGR, the single gauge railway, in order to reduce the cost of transportation, but also the speed with which goods can move from one country to another. And also bulk means that you can actually export a lot of goods cheaply, for instance, to Kenya, to Tanzania, to Burundi, to Rwanda, DRC, South Sudan, and so on, at competitive rates. The other thing that, which is an opportunity, is digital transformation, digitization of border posts, digitization of business processes, digitization of marketing. You know, marketing is very important so that those people can know what you have, okay, so they can demand that product. We're also looking at Uganda being a fast-growing economy. We are looking at benefiting from that growth. In other words, Uganda being, taking a bigger chunk of the GDP of East Africa. For instance, if we exporting to DR Congo, South Sudan, and all these countries, there is an opportunity for us to, to get part of that income that is generated within the East Africa to our people here, so they can expand their businesses. Uganda is also a young country. Okay, about half the population is very young. Actually, more than half the population is very young, and they're very fluent in English. They're fast learning, especially the IT businesses that are coming on.
Okay.
Very soon, what is going to be the big thing is artificial intelligence. And you're looking at the young people like yourself really to apply artificial intelligence in your business processes and marketing.
I saw the campaign videos being done by AI. Now I'm like, no, the young people have actually moved.
Yes. And here we have a very good export, which is called creative industry. Okay. The music. Okay. These videos they shoot the music, the dances, and so on. And they're very popular within East Africa. And they bring in a lot of money, and they are actually supporting a lot of youth in terms of economic development and transformation. Okay. So, but overall, Uganda is a beacon of peace and stability. And that's, without peace and stability, there's very little we can do. And also the macroeconomy, in other words, the stability of the tax system, the stability, the low inflation, the stability of the exchange rate, all those things contribute to attracting what we call foreign direct investment. And once foreign direct investment comes here, of course, it creates jobs, it brings in technology, and also helps to improve our skills for our people, And all that contributes to being productive, more productive, and competitive within the region. Okay. So there are a lot of opportunities that we are looking at in terms of improving productivity and competitiveness and expanding exports, and also ensuring that our youth get more income.
Now, you've given us the opportunities, but as a member state of the East African community, what are some of the key challenges Uganda has faced?
I think one of the key challenges is low productivity. In other words, so when you look at, for instance, labor productivity, okay? When you look at agriculture, for instance, the labor productivity there is only, for each year, on average, a worker here in agriculture earns only about $750, okay? About $750. Okay. Compared to other countries where, it's about 10,000 a year. Okay.
Oh, that's a huge
in industry, it's a bit higher. In services, it's about half of that of industry. In other words, one of the key challenges we have is low productivity in all sectors, in agriculture, industry, and services. And what government is doing now is to prioritize productivity improvement by investing in reforms, by ensuring that the red tape in terms of regulations, simplification of processes, ensuring that processes are efficient, and also reducing the cost in order to improve this productivity. Skilling is very, very important in terms of productivity. There are some countries, such as South Korea, even Israel here, where the key factor they have in terms of competitiveness is actually skills. They have these skills, and we are looking at specialization as well, so that we have high-skilled people who are going to drive the economy, especially the knowledge economy. We are going to be using artificial intelligence and IT, modern IT processes. So that's going to be one of the key. So the other key challenge, of course, we mentioned the high cost of capital, and we are addressing that. We are talking of low capacity to produce in order to satisfy, for instance, the contracts. If we have a contract, for instance, to supply goods in a certain market, we should have enough quantities. But that also goes back to productivity and also improving production so that we can meet those contracts. And then the other thing that we've been lacking and which we are closing is the infrastructure gap. We've invested heavily. Government has invested heavily in energy, in transportation, in electricity, for instance, and also to ensuring that the trade, there's a digitization of the trade facilitation in order to deal with especially the non-trade barriers. So the beauty of online business processes and online businesses and automation is that it helps, break down overcome some of these non-trade barriers as well, so that we can be able to export easily to other countries.
Okay, initially when I was introducing the topic, I mentioned about some of the key challenges that have remained a concern in Uganda's economy. Of course, you've seen debt sustainability, inflation, but there is this key aspect that we always have recurring every year, and the issue of accountability and transparency. Because you mentioned the implementation of the various measures that the government has put on board to ensure that there is growth and attraction of investors. But how are we going to manage the issue of accountability?
Yeah, before I come to that, let me say that inflation is extremely low. I think last month we were talking of about 3.4%. inflation rate, which is extremely low. It's below the target rate of 5% set by the central bank. In terms of debt sustainability, our debt is very, very sustainable actually. When you look at the debt to GDP, our debt compared to the size of the economy or economic activity in the country. It's about roughly around 50, 51%, 52, 50, about 51%. You have countries that are over 100%, even you know, countries like United States, countries like Japan, and so on. Of course, their economies are a little different. They have deeper financial systems and those kind of things. But what I'm saying is that in terms of our debt sustainability is actually very sustainable. We have a challenge, though, because the debt service is a little high, because we spend much of our revenue to service debt, but we are addressing that by increasing domestic revenue. We have a strategy called the Domestic Revenue Mobilization Strategy to actually boost domestic revenue, but also have talked about exports. The debt service to exports is also another area that we are addressing through expansion of our exports. Now, going back to accountability, I think one of the key things to address accountability is through automation and digitization, so that these systems can be audited. There's a track, there's a trail, through these electronic systems. Government is putting in place electronic online systems, automation of the whole of government, in terms of procurement, in terms of health, in terms of education, and many other processes are actually becoming electronic. They are online systems. And once we do that, and also employ modern technology, for instance, the blockchain technology, over time, the issues of corruption and so on are going to go down. But in terms of other aspects of accountability, I think government is committed to that. When we talk about the 10-fold growth strategy, one of the key aspects is putting in place effective accountability framework, so that everyone who is supposed to take an action is actually accountable, not only to the government, but also to the general public.
Okay, now looking at Uganda's trade landscape generally, what is the impact of new trade agreements like the African Continental Trade Agreement? What is the impact on Uganda's trade landscape? So,
for instance, the African Continental Free Trade Area, it creates like Africa as a one trading area, and what that means is that it breaks down the barriers, so that you can be able to export to countries like Algeria, where we're exporting milk now, or Nigeria, and so on and so on, without these trade barriers, because we have these agreements,
What are the trade, for people who are watching us and they want to understand that statement, what are the trade barriers? Do you mean I can export without?
Non-tariff barriers.
Yeah.
They are called non-tariff. I said trade barrier, non-tariff barriers. These are barriers which are put in place, for instance, if you want to export milk, for instance, or eggs to Kenya, they can easily say that your eggs are dirty, or they are unhealthy. And therefore, we are not allowing them to come in. Or beef, they can say your beef is contaminated, when actually it's not. But they just want to shut it out so that you don't compete with them or with their beef producers in that country, or chicken producers in that country. So they bring in barriers, constraints, to prevent you from actually competing or even out-competing their domestic producers. So it's a mechanism to avoid competition, of your product out-competing the products that they have. So it's a mechanism they use to protect their internal markets. It's an inward-looking kind of mechanism to shut out competition, to shut out other exports going, for instance, our exports going to markets like Tanzania and Kenya. So they're called non-tariff because tariff is like you set a tariff of 15% or 20% if you import a certain good into a country. But these ones, they are very unpredictable. in the first place. So you can't understand what Kenya is going to do if we start, for instance, exporting our steel to Kenya.
Like how they stopped us from exporting maize.
Yes, they can say your maize is contaminated with aflatoxins. And therefore, if we bring in here, our people are going to suffer from cancer or something like that, even when it's not actually. But in some instances, actually, it's true. Like, for instance, our grains, are they grains? They're called grains.
Yeah.
The handling wasn't so good, but we're investing in good storage, good handling, post-harvest handling, and also ensuring that you know, some of these things are exported as quickly as possible to avoid contamination. So all this goes back to what you raised, being educated, people being educated on how to handle, you know, from farm to storage to markets. And that process, that value chain is very, very important, the way it's handled.
Okay. So
some of these non-tariff barriers, and that's how they operate. And through political engagement, some of these barriers have been actually removed. Our president, for instance, has been engaging his Kenyan counterpart and his Tanzanian counterpart to address these issues in the context of the East African trade protocols that are in place.
Okay. Yeah. Now, still on that very note of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, how does someone out there who wants to participate, because now we know the trade non-tariff barriers have been wiped out. I can export to Morocco, I can decide to export to South Africa, but now I'm a business person. Maybe probably I have a small factory somewhere and I want to export my coffee to South Africa. How do I participate? How am I eligible to be a member of this agreement? Where do I get that information?
Yes, much of the information is actually online. If you go to the website of this Africa Intercontinental Trade Area, there is a website. So you can get all the information on that website on how you can actually get in, what the requirements are, the entry requirements, the certifications that you need, and also the requirements in the other markets so that you can understand the other markets, because each market is different. You can be able to understand markets on the other side, but also there are people who have been doing a lot of research in these areas, so you can also access some research information, especially market information on how to access those products, what are your competitors in that space, and also the standards. Standards are very, very important because you cannot export sustainably if the standard of your product is not good, and if the price is not good as well. So what is important is actually accessing these online business support services and then be able to understand what is required for each product, because each product is different and each market is different, so the requirements are different.
Okay, the issue of information dissemination, how is the government handling that? Because so many Ugandans out there, especially in the rural areas, they do not know this information. Some of them don't have TVs that they can actually tune in Race TV and get all this information that you're giving us. So how are they channeling all this information concerning these opportunities? Because we are looking at a tenfold economy. That means you're even considering someone in the rural area who has maybe 50 acres of land is in agriculture. How are they getting this information to see that they can also be part of the economic growth?
I think one of them I just mentioned, putting this information online, but also I think it's very important that our politicians, okay, and also the district leaders, the local governments, you know, provide this information to the rural areas. What the Ministry of Finance is doing is to strengthen the planning units. These are economists and planners and statisticians who know these things, and they can be used as channels to actually communicate this information to the various districts and local governments and lower level governments so that these people can understand this. But as I mentioned, we are strengthening the extension services because most Ugandans are actually farmers. Even those who are processing, they are mainly agro-processors. So
Even
they are
some
linked.
of us who are not now, we are interested in that.
Yes, so there's a link to agriculture in terms of the raw materials, in terms of all these other things. So through the PDM processes and circles, this information can be actually disseminated through these channels that we've already established that are in place.
Now, this one is a general question. We're in an election season.
Yes.
What does this mean to a business person?
Elections.
Yeah.
What people look out for in an election is stability. Stability of policies, political stability, so that people can have peace and security of their businesses. But also it means some businesses for people who are like in the printing business. You know, these posters I've seen everywhere.
Yeah.
I'm sure people in the printing area, they are making a lot of money out of this business. But most importantly is the stability and making sure that the fundamentals, the economic fundamentals, meaning a stable exchange rate, low inflation, an environment that is attractive to investors, an environment that will continue supporting exports, continues to be favorable. I think those are the things that people really look out in an election. But for an individual like yourself, I think once these fundamentals remain strong, the fundamentals meaning some of the key elements in the economy that drive economic growth, okay? For instance, a stable economy, as I mentioned, low inflation, a stable exchange rate, low interest rates, as I mentioned, availability of affordable funds. This creates jobs. And once you have jobs, then there is income not only at the national level, but also at household level. So when there's no stability after election or during election, all these things can be terrible. Because the investors, instead of bringing money here, they will actually flee the country. Or they will engage in capital flight. The money will go out. And once the money goes out and businesses slow down, it means that the jobs will be less, the incomes will be lower, and therefore it will impact you negatively. So what we look at is political stability, economic stability, having good relations with the foreign, with the neighbors in order to promote not only exports but also tourism, so that those markets can be secured even after the elections.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now that is well said by you. Could you just give us closing remarks to the viewers? What exactly do you want the Ugandans to take home for tonight, for the next 10 years?
Yes.
Is it 10 years, 5 years?
Yes. I think the message I'm giving is that there are immense opportunities in the economy for everyone, for the youth, for the women like yourself, including for the men like myself, I think, for the investors, and all the other people, because the economic outlook is very positive. Just recently, we've gotten a positive, you call it sovereign credit rating by Standard & Poor's. These are international bodies that assess each country and understand the economic conditions and see whether it is good for investors and also for business. And they have just upgraded us from stable, be stable to positive. That means, therefore, that the businesses, if they're going to borrow money, the risk profile is lower, and therefore they can borrow at more competitive rates. It also means that the government can borrow money at lower interest rates. But most importantly, it opens up Ugandans and businesses to access international capital. Because the risk of default, it means that the risk of default is actually lower.
Okay.
So it is very positive, and I think in terms of the messaging is that we should all take advantage of the initiatives that government has put in place, the PDM, the Small Business Recovery Fund, the Agricultural Credit Facility, the GROW, the Invite, all these things that I've been mentioning, the Myoga, and also the presidential industrial hubs, the ones that are helping, like, for instance, the carpenters, the shoemakers, the tailors, and so on, you know, to become more productive. I think if we all get involved in this and not just look at politics, because politics is coming by January, it will be over, okay. and look at the longer term, okay. I think everyone will be able to benefit from what is available.
That is well said by Mr. Moses Bekhavye, a technical advisor for economic affairs from Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development. Of course, let's make sure that we get this information from our local governments, from facilities like banks. Find out about these initiatives that the government has put on board to ensure that they can boost economic growth and also attract investors in Uganda so that you can be part of the development of Uganda. That is well said. Yeah. Jackie Lingla, till next time, every Friday at 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. here on the Financial Eye. Stay tuned on Rest TV. A very good evening.
Thank you. That's nice. Thank you so much.
The Financial Eye, making finance clear.